Morning everyone, welcome back. It's going to be a bit of a more complicated one this morning. Try to articulate what is happening between the UK and Russia, Ukraine, EU. So I'm not going to go back all the way to when Biden was in the White House, but I'm going to talk from Trump onwards, which isn't very, it's only a short period of time. So they obviously knew that Trump was going to pull out and wanted to pull out. So they had their plans. The context is this. Okay, 4 days before the Trump inauguration, US sent their Secretary of State to Kiev to talk to Zelensky, and they wanted to make their rare earths deal. That was the idea, and the US wasn't able to provide the full security that Ukraine wanted, and wasn't able to get that deal done vis-a-vis the security that Zelensky wanted quick enough. So it wasn't that they were never going to do it, but Zelensky needed it then because he didn't know what Trump was going to do and he wanted the deal signed. So Keir Starmer goes to Kiev and he offers them the security, and then they do that deal. They do the deal. This is where you see on your media the 100-year agreement between UK and Ukraine. And when they articulate that in the media, they say it's a 100-year agreement to show English support, British support to Ukraine. Now, there's obviously completely meaningless language because that's how they speak. The substance to that deal is the rare earth minerals, the ports, pipelines, warehouses and supply chains in Ukraine are going to have been already signed over to the UK. Now, just for a bit of context, because I'll forget, Zelensky from the beginning has always been MI6's man. So the UK were always much more involved in this than was initially portrayed. So they have this contract signed now, which means because they knew Trump wanted to pull out. So Trump's now in, and the original plan was going to be Trump provides secondary support, but vital support to the EU and the UK, but they take the lead role. The reason that this situation has continued is that the contract, so you've all probably heard people, the MAGA people, the people that are against this war, provoking the establishment, saying things like Zelensky's not legitimate because he's passed his term of office. Okay, so if you go to the Ukrainian constitution, there is provision for the president in situations of martial law and situations like this for the term to be extended. So as we speak, Zelensky is a legitimate president, the legitimate president of Ukraine. The complexity comes in the so the Ukrainian Constitutional Court has ruled that he's president, which is why at the moment that is a legitimate situation, and he's the president legitimate president to sign agreements, international agreements, in this case with the UK. The problem and the root cause of what's happening in the EU's and UK's continuation of this war is that there are three articles in the Ukrainian constitution that provide for this situation of continued office. The problem is those articles are very much down to interpretation, and what happens is it depends on the political situation in Ukraine as to how the Constitutional Court of Ukraine rules. So if, for example, the political military situation in Ukraine changes and the hegemony in that zone, in that region, changes from, at the moment I would call it's Anglo-European, if it changes to Russian, American, then the hegemonic power can interpret the Ukrainian constitution disfavorably to the United Kingdom and favorably to themselves, which is the benefit of political power. That would mean the agreement between the United Kingdom and Ukraine would be null and void, and the United Kingdom will have lost its investment, and the European Union as well. So that is why the UK and Europe are so gung-ho for this war, because you must have thought it's a bit inexplicable, you know, all this for sovereignty and freedom and democracy, when we all know that's the last thing they care about. So that's the situation. We lose political or military control over that region, then we lose the legitimacy of Zelensky's signature, which means they've lost everything. And they need those rare earth minerals to use as collateral so they can start filling in the black holes in their European and British economies, and they can start using their own industry to rebuild the parts of Ukraine that they still have. So basically that's the take, that's the issue. The agreement can be found on the government website. The original source for this was a Ukrainian intelligence leak through a Chechen website called AE, but since then, that was a while ago now, that's a few days, since then it's been well reported. Now, a good source on this kind of thing, my best source, open intelligence source, is a guy, he's a hedge fund guy, he's from Croatia, out of Monaco. His name's Alex Krainer. If you don't know him and you're interested in this kind of thing, I think he's an excellent source, and good sources are very difficult to come by. If you just jump into a new subject, you're not going to get great sources. It takes years to find quality sources, especially when we're in situations where there's, like in the UK, when there's full narrative lockdown, which there is. Okay, so that's the war situation. Now, on to the situation in the UK, the social situation. As I said, there's full narrative lockdown. Most of what the UK media is saying, it's very rare that the UK media on these modern contemporary subjects ever say anything that isn't the polar opposite of the truth. So you've got your full narrative lockdown, you've got the inversion of the truth by all the media. The media has been completely bookended, what Chomsky used to call bookended, where you know, from the left to the right, everyone is on exactly the same page. It's unbelievable to watch the establishment, like every single establishment person. I mean, it's Soviet. Every single establishment person saying exactly the same thing. People like, what's his name? Alistair Campbell. You know, the guy that sexed up British intelligence because the Americans told him to, and then went to war in Iraq, and everyone knows the rest of that story. I'm really surprised that they use someone to push a war agenda whose main claim to fame is lying about war. Is it that they have such contempt for the people that they just don't care? Like, why would you choose the person that's famous for lying about war to push the next war? I mean, they must care so little about what anyone thinks. So that brings me on to the next thing. It's very strange for me that I don't know what it's like to be in the UK at the moment, or I haven't been there for absolutely donkey's years, but I'm surprised that it doesn't seem to be. Do you feel in the UK that you're allowed to protest this? Because it doesn't look like it. You'd think there would be some kind of protest, but I think that what they've done is the psyop, the propaganda is so strong, and the behavior of the people that are on the side of the state, because they're not on the side of Ukraine. I mean, just take a look at Ukraine. If that's what a country looks like when you're on their side, I mean, everything they touch, they destroy, these people. You know, look back at the last 6 wars. Look at their excuses, look at their reasons. Look at the people that support them. Look at the people that support the wars, the last 6, let's say. It's the same people every time that work for state media, and then they hope you don't remember what happened last time, and then they just roll out the same propaganda. So it's just the same. It's the same story every time. And anyway, there's no protests in the UK, and you can kind of feel that there wouldn't be protests. You can just sense from the mood. It almost feels strange to ask about protests. Almost like asking if you're allowed to protest in the Soviet Union. They'd think you were idiots, unless you were a fake protest on behalf of the government, like controlled opposition, but not an authentic one. So, full narrative lockdown, no protests, but I would like to know, the question I always want to know is what percentage of people feel this way? Feel the way I do. Feel that they're being lied to, they're going to another war based on another set of lies. And how many feel the same way? I think it's about 30%, something like that. At least it's got to be 30%. Right. So there's no mechanism by which we can do anything, right? So they have full parliamentary control, no parliamentary opposition to be seen. Mr. Controlled Opposition, Nigel Farage, is doing his job in making sure that the people that follow him are on the side of the establishment, and everything's all locked up, narrative locked up, parliament locked up. There's no outlet, and certainly not in the normie media. And if you go on to social media and look at the same subject, it's a load of slop. It's nothing but slop. A slop on, you know, you got MAGA Americans trolling, like kind of the Europeans, the Ukrainian Europeans, and then vice versa. It's just slop. It's very hard. So this is quite unbelievable to me. How many people know, or they don't have to know, how many people could articulate their best hypothesis as to why Russia invaded Ukraine? Doesn't have to be true, just what you think the reason is. And I'm asking, like, so what do you think? Not necessarily what you think, but what the population thinks. Because I can't imagine many people in Britain even being able to articulate an idea. Everything just seems to be Putin bad, Putla. It's the same as Hitler, Second World War again. Everything is that kind of boomer meme of the Second World War. Everything's Second World War, and it's absolutely mind-numbing. So then nobody is given any quality information on anything. So there's no way they can articulate why, just why they think Putin invaded Ukraine. The absolute stupefaction and destruction of a nation. I feel so bad for these Brits that are living there. It's not only there, it's pretty bad over the Western Europe, Germany, and absolutely no political mechanism whatsoever. How that doesn't get more attention. It's very frustrating. I find it very frustrating to listen to. There's so much content on the kind of, I would call them the younger normie right, that sees reform as something that's going to bring about any change. I say it a lot, but I do think one of the most debilitating factors about British society is the perception that it's a democracy, because it maintains that conveyor belt of false hope that just goes on and on and on. So anyway, I don't think I've got anything else to say. I have written, I'm in the middle of writing an article about this Ukraine thing, because the questions are completely, every question, there's no questions. They don't get to ask questions. It's like North Korea. I mean, the diversity of political opinion among members of the British establishment and among members of the British press is the same as North Korea. There's no diversity of opinion whatsoever. So, right, well, I'm going to leave it there. I am writing an article on this on Substack. Good source of information, as I mentioned before, Alex Craner. The Duran is very good. I do think Brits need better quality information. I really do. Check it out for yourselves. Let me know what you think. My Substack is Simon Noxon, Noxon, and the handle is Spiritual Psyop. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next time.